today we are going to talk about Belial, one of the spirits I have deep relationship with. And we will talk about the topic he requested me to talk about, which is we will theoretically examine and elaborate upon his relationship with wrath and crime. Now I will define both of those terms really shortly. When I say wrath, I refer to the wrath which is created in a human being when energy of Belial is present. And when I refer to the crime, I refer to the illegal activities Belial is usually associated with. I do not judge anybody who is engaging in those activities at all. I consider those activities to be necessary part of the human existence, and I also do not judge people who engage in those things. Now, what is connection between Belial, wrath, and crime? So Belial is a force of revolt and rebellion, and that revolt and rebellion can take many directions. That revolt and rebellion can be the revolt and rebellion which liberates the man, but it can also be a revolt and rebellion which enslaves the man. Policeman who is beating the protester and the protester who is beating the policeman are two expressions of the same impulse generated by the energy of Belial. Now, Belial is not the only spirit who generates this form of activity. There are many others. But in this specific video, we'll discuss only Belial and how he influences. And we will also discuss how one can work with him effectively on those matters. So, if one wants to partake in illegal activity and work with some spiritual entity in order to be successful in that endeavor, Belial is ideal choice. Now, I recommend working with him on a daily basis if you are engaged in this form of activity. I will give short methodology here. You will raise a sacred space by imagining black sun above your head and rays of the black sun penetrating the edges of aforementioned space until you can literally feel dark green energy rising from the edges of the space. When the space is raised, repeat the magical chant Vra Cha Belial or Vra Cha Belial. Repeat the chant over and over again until the energy of Belial manifests. When that happens, you will ritually offer to Belial something which represents your chains and tell him to consecrate it. I recommend representing and offering some form of handcuffs. You can buy handcuffs and offer them, or you can offer him ropes and you can dedicate them to Belial and tell him to consecrate them, and this way you can start your work in him helping you with illegal activity. And this has double meaning. One is it exposes and presents Belial as a liberator, but it also holds symbolism of Belial being a really dangerous being to work with, in a sense which is really something nobody talks about. But since I received multiple comments from multiple people commenting on this issue, I will be forced by my own ethical norms to kind of talk about this aspect of him. So Belial is the breaker of chains, but he is also the chainer. He is a liberator, but he is also the enslaver. As I said, police officer who beats the protester and protester who beats the police officer are two expressions of the same impulse generated by him. So if you do not approach Belial properly, and if you do not show the proper strength of character, what will happen is he will abuse your lack of ability and willingness to fight back. Now, when I say he will abuse your lack of ability to fight back, let me explain. We all possess enormous potential, and the only way we lack ability to fight back is if we refuse to tap into that potential, and we refuse to learn and study enough in order to tap into the potential. So if you work with him and if you refuse to tap into your potential, and if you rely only on him, he will bully you and he will make your life a hellscape in order to force you to tap into that potential. So he behaves towards people in 3 ways, actually in 4 ways. From my personal experience, one way he behaves is if you call him first in a time of a great need, he will help and he will work really quickly. This is how he works with men. But later on, as you continue to work with him as a male, he will act as abusive father figure, and he will purposefully put you in traumatic situations in order to make you stronger. I talk about severe trauma, so he behaves as abusive father in this form of a relationship, and he really beats men into shape. I don't have other wording to express what he does. He really tortures you as a male until you create a form of a psyche which is capable of withstanding adversities of this world and another spiritual planes he represents. With women, he has a different approach. He has 2 groups of women. One group of women he likes a little bit, and another group of women he likes a lot. How much he likes a female is usually determined a little bit by character, but mostly by genetics. If he sees a really big potential within female, from a genetic point of view, he will protect them no matter what, and no matter what they do, they will be guarded by him heavily. However, for the females who do not have that enormous potential, he will behave in the same way he behaves towards males. The only difference is he will be much less harsh towards females. He will never traumatize them to the degree he does it to males. And that's truth about him. So I received a lot of comments from a particular female telling that she was traumatized by Belial, and she described exactly what I said in this video. In the beginning, Belial was pretty nice and he helped her with the drug addiction and everything, but later on he started becoming some form of abusive father figure, and he turned her life into the hellscape. And the reason why he is doing so is pretty simple. You see, majority of spirits will do the following. If you are not willing to work on your issues, psychological issues, spiritual issues, health issues, social issues, any form of issues, they will simply leave you. But with Belial, that's not the case. If you don't work on your issues, Belial will come and he will beat you into confronting those issues. He will literally do that. He will traumatically arrange one circumstance in your life after another to an extreme degree, to the point of turning your life into literal hellscape in order to force you to confront those issues. And he is not at all gentle about it. He is extremely harsh. And what is happening to this woman who spoke in a comment section, now I will not mention her name for the sake of privacy, is that there are pretty severe issues in her life she refuses to deal with, and Belial is turning her life into the hellscape in order to force her to confront those issues. And the thing is, I think personally it's extremely difficult to manage Belial in this stage, because there is some form of a covenant between Belial and that female. Some form of agreement or pact is made here, from my observation of the situation. And that female individual cannot simply call certain spirits and banish Belial, because some form of pact is made. So what I recommend here is that females should summon Belial and ask Belial what are the issues he is beating her into confronting. And once she realizes what are those issues, my advice here is for that individual to start mechanically and methodically approaching those issues until they are actually confronted. So, guys, tell me what you think about this. And also, this is something regarding Belial I realized after years of working with the entity. So I kind of met many people who worked with him, and I have kind of came to this conclusion. And this is not only conclusion I came towards, that's actually opinion shared by many sorcerers, that demons can be cruel, but Belial is exceptionally cruel in certain situations, even for the demonic standards. But his cruelty is always directed, if you work with him, towards your own benefit. So that's what I have to say. And I have one last advice for the audience here. When you work with Belial, necessity of physical exercise is extremely important. The energy of Belial has a certain quality of stimulating the animalistic energy centers within man. So if you work with him extremely seriously, those centers will be stimulated no matter what, and therefore you have to exercise in order to channel that animalistic energy somewhere so that it doesn't overwhelm you. Regarding sexual expression, when you work with him, it can become more violent if you are male and more intense if you are a female. So I advise to not take that boost in libido as expression of yourself, and to realize that that's a consequence of working with this particular energy, and therefore it should be observed in that context and controlled in that context. It should be observed as a tool we receive from him in order to empower ourselves in a certain way. And that sexual increase shouldn't be abused and observed as some form of revolutionary liberation. Because if we express it too much, it can pretty quickly become something which enslaves us, and that's what actually Belial does. He gives you a lot of tools, awakens within you a lot of animalistic urges, and he also gives you a lot of techniques. But if you are not careful, and those techniques, just like a chain we mentioned in the beginning, which you put and ask Belial to consecrate, that chain can be a template for you to break your chains. But it can also be a way of you chaining yourself. So all of the techniques Belial gives, they can be a really powerful tool for liberation, but they can also be, how I can say, a tool with which you enslave yourself to the point of no return. So my advice to the female who spoke in a comment section, and he kind of wrote a lot of comments, is to ask Belial what are the issues and then start solving them. Thanks for watching and see you tomorrow. And we will have a little bit more Belial videos this week. Peace out.